last year because last year ended with a higher victory total in the playoff game. But, man, I'm coming out of this more convinced that the next few years are a big, wide window for the Indians than I was last year, because I can't lie. As excited as I was, I came out of last year hoping that I was just being a Clevelander and going, yeah, but we won all these games against all these tomato cans down the stretch, and Detroit just kicked the sand in our face all season long. And was this a product of the schedule? Did the Indians just get a hot month and ride it into the playoffs, and they're going to bounce back with a 77, 78 win season, and people are going to go, what happened? I know it didn't end at 92, but looking at everything that they dealt with and that they could have done, as we say, could have, would have, should have won 100 games this year. But I'm coming out of this season looking at it going, man, I'm more jazzed for the next few years, because even with everything I think you could have listed that could have screwed up and went wrong for the team this year, they came out of it 85 and 77, back-to-back winning seasons. The future is truly bright for the core of this team if the front office sees that and seizes the moment.
Well, I'm convinced that they do, in fact, see it. And the reason for my optimism is that, they say the three most important things in baseball are pitching, pitching, and pitching, and that's really where the strength of this team is right now, both in the bullpen and in the rotation. You hear comments from people like Brett Osmus and people around the league saying, whoa, look at that Cleveland rotation. It's young, it's high ceiling, it's deep, and the people that say, well, you always need more pitching. Yes, of course, they're right. You need more pitching, and you need, 7 or 8 starters that you can rely on to go out and win a ball game. But I think right now the pitching situation is as good as it's been in Cleveland from a starting rotation standpoint in a long time. And that gives me hope, because the team that wins the World Series is usually the team that has the best starting pitching. You can just go back through the years and write it down. I'm probably more optimistic about the short and long-term future of the franchise than I was last year.
Yep.
Because it seemed a little bit, like you say, fluky at the end of last year. And we said at the beginning of this year, let's play like we cannot plan on winning our last 10 games in a row, because that's not going to happen. It was fluky to win 10 games in a row. You needed some real magic to make that happen. And, you obviously can't rely on doing that every year and closing out like that. So, but yeah, when you look at it, and when I said the 90 wins, I mean, that's what won the division. And,
yep, you're right.
So you're really just talking about a ball here and there that somebody needs to pick up on the infield and not throw into the first base dugout. And how much of that did we see when we were all pulling our hair out over how terrible the Indians' defense was in the first half of the season? Yes, it improved, but I think they still ended up with something in the neighborhood of 115 errors, and that's just unacceptable defensive play. Now, is that going to get better next year? I think so. Certainly, if you have Ramirez and Lindor in the lineup in the middle infield, and you have Santana playing first base, he's turned into a better than average first baseman, and you have to hope that Chisenhall will improve at third base if he in fact is still playing third base for this team next year. So it can't be worse. So you have to look at the infield defense being better, and that was one of the biggest problems with this club in the first half. And optimistic about glass half full about the next year, because the front office certainly has to know where they need to be, and they need to add offense to this team. And they're hamstrung by some contracts. A lot of people would just as soon go into next year without Swisher and Kipnis, and maybe even without Bourne. I may even count myself in that club, but we're committed to some contracts, and we're going to have to make do, and we're also going to have to go out and spend some more money. But you and I've never had a problem spending the Dolan's money.
No, absolutely. Whether they do or not, we have no problem doing that whatsoever. Quickly, you mentioned Lindor in there and Ramirez being in there together. Do you think, does your gut tell you? Because I don't think it's a foregone conclusion at all. Do you think Lindor breaks camp with the Indians to start the season next year?
Probably not, knowing how the Indians operate, because they're going to try to save a year on the arbitration thing and on the playing time issue, and I guess they have to wait a month or whatever to bring a guy up to to save that extra year of team control for a player instead of starting him out breaking camp with the team. So no, if their track record is any guide to future behavior, he probably won't break camp with the team, and they'll bring him up at some point May or June.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And really, that just depends on how the season goes. Because the other thing, too, is as much as people salivate at him there, too, I think if the Indians do the few roster tweaks that we think they need to do here in the offseason, and if you come into next year with the expectations that I fully think the Indians are going to be in place to come into next season with there, that I think that's a less conducive atmosphere to having him up in the earlier part of the season. So I actually think the earlier you see Lindor next year, the less likely it is that the season is going the way you, I, or the Indians hope. I'm not saying that playoff teams can't have a young guy right off the bat or early in the season in there, but that's also something that's not traditionally seen either. And speaking of next year, here's a pet peeve that's been bugging me, because this is, and I know part of this is the Clevelander and people coming out when they make these kind of comments, but the biggest thing about Kluber that I keep getting is I'm just not convinced. Can Corey Kluber do this again? And I'm like, slow down, listen. Can he do this exact greatness? Maybe, maybe not. Some representable facsimile of it? Absolutely. He's already shown you that he could come back from one year to the next even stronger. People act like, I joke about the Indians, you got to win 2 winning seasons in a row before you get to 3. How do you think Felix Hernandez became King Felix? He had 1, then another. I mean, people do actually stack up back-to-back Cy Young seasons in a row. That's what the great pitchers do. But here in Cleveland, we're so used to, and the fan base is so used to that other hand slapping you on the way back, that nobody can have back-to-back great seasons. When we do get the occasional, like you see, this great season out of Kluber, you go, well, there's no way he can do it again, because that just doesn't happen here. I believe that it can and it will. Unlike saying Justin Masterson's going to be the ace of the rotation this year, when you bank on Corey Kluber next year, you're banking on something that's going to come through. Whether it will be this fantastically great of a season, I don't know. But like I said, it's going to be some representable facsimile of it.
Yeah, I think that's right, and part of that is owing to Kluber's makeup, his personality, his demeanor, his calm. That you've just got to believe that he's going to, handle success well, and that's a big part of it. You also talk about the expectations for the club next year. I think people are not only going to look at Cleveland's progression over the course of 2014 and the growth of that young starting rotation, but they're also looking at the possibility of Detroit minus Scherzer and Kansas City minus Shields, and possibly Detroit minus Victor. Addition by subtraction for the Indians.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's going to be figured into that whole equation when they start looking at 2015.
Since you just said it, you heard me and Bruce talking. Bruce and I, excuse me. Where's my manners? You heard us talking on the phone moments ago before you joined us there. Victor to Cleveland. Obviously, we're far from the only ones talking about this. A lot of fans very hopeful that this is something that they would like to see. But realistically, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I really believe that where there's smoke on this one, there may be fire. I think he's interested, and I do believe that the Dolans can be convinced to write that check, especially because he comes with a blatant, you don't have to look at advanced metrics. You could just actually roll out the stat sheet and go, man, you don't even have to. The Dolans wake up every morning after the Tigers play in Progressive Field, and they see they see the dents in the seats and on the walls where Victor's hit balls all over the place, and they know. So I think that one's an easier sell than almost anybody else, because he's not only been here before, he's not only still great, but he plays extremely great in our park.
Well, yeah, and the Dolans are, it might be tone deaf, but they aren't too tone deaf to realize what a hugely popular personality Victor Martinez is in Cleveland. And,
huge.
He cried when he left. I mean, you're
Yes.
going to get absolutely no blowback. You're going to get enthusiasm on stilts from the fan base, and they've got to know that. They know that they need to add hitting to this team, and so let me see. I wonder if they lay awake nights wondering I wonder if we add the best hitter in the American League to this roster, whether that would be a smart move. So they. I don't know if it comes down to a money decision. Certainly, it comes down to the decision rests with Victor Martinez and nobody else as far as what he wants to do and his agent. But is it a smart move? Of course, it's a smart move. The club needs hitting. The town loves Victor. He hits great here. What's not to like? So. Speaking of Bruce's comments on your show, I love Bruce, and he's on top of it in terms of the tribe. And he's absolutely right that the tribe's drafting in recent years has turned up a whole heck of a lot of players that are no longer in baseball. I went back and took a look. He isn't right about the last five, though. I mean, the last five, even if you don't count 2014, there's only one of the last five, 2009 through 2013. Who's out of baseball, and that's Alex White. As far as I know, he hasn't pitched since 2012. But, after that, Drew Pomerantz, who was a starter for the A's this year until he broke his hand, Lindor in 11, Naquin in 12, Frazier in 13. Yeah. Those guys are all in the Indians farm system. You do have to go back. What I was saying. They had a stretch, and Bruce is right, from 2002 to 2007, they had 11 first-round picks. The only one that is even marginally a contributing major league ball player is Jeremy Guthrie in 2002, and obviously he didn't do that for the Cleveland Indians. I mean, you've got a whole litany of people, and the only ones that even made the big leagues are Sowers, Trevor Crowe, David Huff, and those guys are all, you'd have to say, marginal major league ball players. But starting in 2008 with Lonnie Chisenhall, they've gone, 8 first-round picks since then, and only one of them is gone from the league. So Bruce is right about the miserable drafting record, but the recent history is not as bad as, let's say, the decade from 97 to 07.
Well, and that's what I was telling him when I kind of tried to say that exact same what you just said is not the last 5 years, but the 10 years before that. He's 100% right, and I gotta say that part of that is where we're at now. We're talking about the last 5 drafts. We say
exactly.
On average,
and we don't know yet. Yeah, we don't even know yet whether
that's coming now. That's where we're getting into now. That time where those guys now are all kind of coming up to the majors around the same time frame.
Yeah, that's true. We don't know yet about the last, 3 or 4. Lindor, Naquin, Frazier. We don't know if these guys are going to be, and Bradley Zimmer this year. We don't know if these guys are going to be outstanding major leaguers. It's too soon to tell on them. But you listen to what other people say about the Indians drafting. You listen to what the Baseball America people say and what the Baseball Prospectus people say about the status of the tribe's farm system, and there's no doubt that the money that Dolans have poured in, as Bruce rightly pointed out, is paying dividends, and that the farm system has creeped up from one of the worst to, at worst, a middle of the pack to slightly above average farm system in terms of depth and talent, right now, in the eyes of the people that get paid money to, rate those things. So I think you have to say that, and you have to put that on Mark Shapiro, not on Dolan necessarily. He's the one writing the checks, but Shapiro is the one, guiding the direction of the franchise. And and they realize that their needs are in the area of corner outfielders, and that's where Frazier and Naquin and Zimmer come into play, and where trades for guys like Ramsey come into play.
I mean, I'm telling you, I've been all weekend. I've talked to a couple of friends of mine off the air that know that I'm obviously I'm a big Indians fan. All the Cleveland teams. I mean, I'm a Cleveland fan. I'm a Cleveland supporter more than just the word fan. But so getting the Indians' attendance fixed is a big concern to me. I mean, I don't care if they ever sell 42,000 seats a night for 5-6 straight years. I'm not even talking about that. But it's got to get out of whatever this is that we've been in. And I think I have a pretty good understanding of a lot of the external reasons why it's there. We talk about it all the time, and coming from a sports entertainment background, I understand drawing and attractions and things like that a little bit different than just the sports side of it. Man, I see, this is not homerism, Dan. I told you a little bit of this last week. I see kind of a perfect storm opportunity this winter